Hello everybody, I gotta do another live. I want my other live to take off because that's pretty big too, but this is equally important and it's for Ontarians. And I want to make sure I get it right. I give it to you straight. I am not well versed in Ontario. I'm well versed in our Canadian system and absolutely the provincial design of our system, but I'm not absolute in law for each of the provinces. When I start breaking down the acts, it's a tremendous volume. I've done my home province of Alberta, Ontarians, and this video really is for you, and I want to get a disturbing trend out of the way that I absolutely felt and I visually see since the day I came to this province just about 6 weeks ago. And for a Westerner born and raised, I could feel that heat of what's here, and I feel the foreign influence. I feel it very, very strongly. So I'm going to do my best here to get it right for all of you. When you hear War Measures Act or martial law does not exist in Canada. Not anymore. It's been absolutely removed from the Canadian system legally since the end of the League of Nations. So when the term comes up, martial law, that's a UK term, and it always highlights for me, we got some foreign influence here, and some of that's inherited from our older generation, not through their fault, but because that's what they grew up with. And we're talking people that were born and maybe children during the 30s and 40s, okay? And some young adults, they're still alive today, they're still with us. They talk, and I get that, I do. And I do know seniors even in my home province of Alberta. And when I meet with them, before all this COVID crap, when I go and I meet seniors and I talk to them and I sit down with them and I explain these things to them, because a lot of things are with them, they're cemented with them, and you have to go, hey, you know, this part of the world isn't the way you thought it was, the way you think of Governor General, the way you think of Lieutenant Governor, heck, even the way people think of the Crown, even those from the 50s and 60s. So you're all still there. I know this is still there, somewhat fresher with Ontario, and people gravitate to these narratives. But we don't have that martial law anymore. That hasn't been the way in Canada for a very long time. We now have absolutely Canada's Emergency Measures Act federally. And we also have provincially, through the legislature, we have the Civil Measures, Emergency and Civil Measures Act. That's for the province of Ontario. Each province has their own. What unites all of them, everybody, is absolute crown power of our autocratic premiers. Again, I'm going to say it, I'm sorry, but there are 0 constitutions for any province. Absolutely, premiers have full, what is called crown authority, that's vested by the Federal Constitution of Canada. That Federal Act gives autocratic authority absolute to your premier. And how they do that, so none of you seemingly know any better, and they keep what I call and classify all of us, regardless of some people's wealth differences, and some people do well in business, but you're third class. You're not part of that elite establishment. You don't have access to creating legislation. That elite first-class citizen I talk about, which is usually wealthy, and they got their wealth from all of you, is that they have full authority over you in a backdoor crown power, and that's provincially through Lieutenant Governor. Those are the rules of governance enshrined in our Canadian Constitution that rolls out the powers of everybody. So your premier can look like he's a really, or she is a very democratic person from a party, and that everything they do is for their constituents, and they go through legislature, but really that's not the absolute truth at all. That's actually a fallacy. The real power is vested in whether it's Premier or Prime Minister, we're just going to look at Ontario over emergency measures and Civil Protection Act, which is what Doug Ford is able to do in Ontario, what those powers come from, and how he's able to just make powers, boom, hammer society. No use of legislature, or if it is, it's forced through the majority government. MLAs must adopt what Doug Ford says, or they're gone. They're gone. That's plain and simple. They get cue cards. All MLAs in Ontario get cue cards by that Premier and his council, his official cabinet. All the MLAs he appointed to absolute cabinet positions, gave them an extra title, right? Like finance, or goes on and on. All provinces do this. This is all that council that is absolutely under and enforced generally in every act, every law. Canadian citizens, Ontarians, I can go through all your bills, no different than Alberta. They just have different names. They have some difference of powers administered, of Crown power. But Lieutenant Governor has full authority, and that's a Crown power shared by the Prime Minister, overseen by the Prime Minister and Governor General, shared with premiers, full autocracy. They have their cabinets, which are their councils. It was royal at one time. Yes, it was. All of it went through the Queen, but that hasn't been the way for a very long time. The premiers, the Prime Minister, they have that embedded Crown power, absolute over all of you. They don't have to use any democracy whatsoever, and they can do and administer as they see fit and utilize that embedded Crown power, which is absolutely in every single act. Generally, I can't prove that for Ontario, because again, their massive bills, Doug Ford, I'm sure, pumps them out just like Jason Kenney does. Pumps out 3, 4, 5, 10 a month if he wants. Stripping and taking away all your rights at will. Yes, legislature gets together. Yes, MLAs vote, but generally they will vote the way they're told, off a cue card. They never read the acts or bills, let alone understand them. They don't. They don't. That's a reality. I'm sure that's a reality across all of Canada, both provincially and federally. But it's worse provincially because we've never codified any constitution whatsoever. Even though the federal constitution codifies rules of governance and absolute Crown power bestowed upon your absolute politicians and the absolute appointed Crown politicians. And they're appointed. They're not elected. The true power of government in Canada is only in two positions, Prime Minister and of all the premiers, and then it's the appointed Lieutenant Governors, Governor General, to hide this most grievous undemocratic power. Now, a lot of people don't seem to realize that this is what the politicians from Conservatives and Liberals stole absolutely from King George VI when he passed away in 52. He had started a process mandated by the Allies he never finished. So when people talk common law, we're going to go through common law here in absolute. All this cockamamie stuff that is absolutely from the UK, that is not true. It hasn't been true for very, very many decades. Maybe some Canadians are gravitating to this because they don't know any better and because of lack of transparency from the government, especially Governor General and Lieutenant Governors. This is what happens. It's the government's fault. But then I do believe in the foreign influence of UK. Absolutely to throw it in there so Canadians fall on their face, especially in trying to navigate international law, human rights, and the real legal system that's before us. The courts, for one. Police are not the enemies. Courts are not the enemies. Lawyers are not your enemies. They're subject to it too. And government intervention that comes in, they force and mandate that. Now we see some police organizations say, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing this. But really it's the power, autocratic power of premiers, lieutenant governor to do that. So common law. What is common law? Common law comes, I say 1200 AD, it comes absolutely from the beginning of Magna Carta. I'm going to say it again. It's a UK old constitution that has always been the problem with constitutional monarchies, Canadians. Constitutional monarchies and common law. Law of precedent, meaning judges must rule by preceding cases. They can make new decisions based on law and what they've learned. And they do, as long as the government and the autocratic system allows them to. They can come in and step in and say, no, you can't. You can't even rule on this case. You can't even hear this case. Or you can rule on the case, but you can't provide any remedy whatsoever. We have the authority that allows you to do that, and we're taking it away. They use Lieutenant Governor. That is your common law. It's always been here. It is always of the Crown since 1179, and an Ontarian actually brought this forward, which is great. I talk about it all the time, but they actually brought the Magna Carta time of the King Henry II, way back in 1197, whose son was a scholar, an academic, who was setting up all this common law system with the lords and barons, who wanted what the actual person thinks, giving charter rights, human rights, to the average everyday citizen. But that argument that was made by that King Henry II's son scholar still holds weight today, and has always been and always will be the problem with constitutional monarchies. You can have all the rights codified in the world. The common law is the law of precedent, but it's also the unwritten law, meaning customary law, meaning when you have a monarch, whatever that monarch wants to do, without codified rules of governance and how to govern, meaning placing rules on a monarch or anybody else, these people don't have to cement or enshrine any of your rights. They can change them at will and say what you can or can't have, or legislate their own rules, what we call small c. I mean, it's not codified in a constitution for the people, which should have all the rules of government and governance, how they govern you. We don't have that in Canada. We don't. We never have. No monarchies ever do. Colonialism grew because of that absolute autocratic power. It's supposed to be gone today. Some nations still do the monarchy system. It's supposed to be abolished. They have a sneaky way around it. Sure, the crown from UK was abolished. It's now just, a figurehead. It's on our money, a good feeling, but they don't have an actual say over your governance, so to speak. But your politicians do. They've stolen that crown power, and they absolutely have it. That's what's enshrined in our Constitution. Liberals, conservative, this is a pitfall of common law. These people talking about common law that they get to administer, the sovereign of citizen, and going back to Magna Carta, oops, you're dead wrong, because you forgot about the power of the crown, power of a king who doesn't have to follow any of those charter common law principles. It's been a fight since 1179. 2021, Canadians. Wake up. Constitutionalism. Don't be so quick to dismiss the United States of America and the Russia Federation, because they absolutely have rules of governance. Absolutely. And they are very, very proud of it. Even when Russia runs in a one-party system and has some federal civil law socialist embedments, they're huge, they still have rules of governance. You can predict how their courts are going to decide and function. You can predict what the people are going to have in absolute rights. The same for the United States of America. Both are republics, by the way. Communist China is a republic, by the way. These are republic principles. We are not a republic. We are a parliamentary system, a constitutional monarchy. Not very good at all. When people start to really look at what common law is in a constitutional monarchy, you will learn what is and what isn't. That's my video today. Share it. I don't know what new emergency measures that Doug Ford is going to roll out through his act, as he has an appointed lieutenant governor who runs the whole council that will do whatever he or Prime Minister say, really. Sorry, Ontarians. That's the system you live in, as are all other provinces, all other territories. 2/3 of your rights are not enshrined whatsoever, or any rules of governance in any province or territory. All of your civil rights. It's how the government is able to get you to give up your Charter of Rights and Freedoms. They can abuse all of your civil rights because there's no rules of governance. Zero in provinces and territories. They even have more autocratic power than Justin Trudeau. Hard to believe, right? But they do. And everybody wants to talk. I just keep getting banged here. But I'm going to let you all go. And this is my video. Critical share. Get it out there. I am going to be having secret meetings to talk to and discuss with Ontarians who want to learn more about this. That is true. I got to do it. And we're all going to see you as I go through it. Thank you. Bye now.